a quick recap of that meditation. We did 10 minutes before, and the reason for 10 minutes is to show you that 10 minutes is possible. You feel very different after just 10 minutes of doing that. So just as we're gathering the last few folks from the lobby, let's just move ourselves back into that state and experience it in our bodies. And that's really the crucible of shift, is to be in your body and feeling these states, not out here, but right here. So feel your breath going in and out through your heart. Relax your tongue on the floor of your mouth. Feel the big empty space behind your eyes. Slow your breathing down to 6 seconds per in-breath, 6 seconds per out-breath. Big empty space behind your eyes. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. And now as you breathe in 6 seconds through your heart, and out 6 seconds through your heart, send a beam of love from your heart to a person or place that makes you feel wonderful. Notice the consistency, the quality of your heart's energy beam. Notice the color and the shape of your heart energy. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Big empty space behind your eyes. Feeling that love pouring from your heart to their heart. Tongue totally relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Now gently drawing your energy beam back into your own body. And sending that heart love, heart energy to some part of your body that's in pain, or that needs extra energy, or that needs extra love. And then with the next 3 breaths, prepare to open your eyes. On the 3rd breath, open them and look around you. Notice the lightest colored object in the room. Notice the darkest colored object in the room. And just welcome yourself back into your body. That method of meditation is one I developed for people like me who are failed meditators. I was never able to meditate. I remember going into a spiritual community and joining it when I was 15 years old, learning energy healing, energy touch, learning meditation. And the guru said, meditation is simple. All you do is close your eyes and still your mind. I'm thinking, still my mind? It's been, 50 years since then, I still can't still my mind. So I developed this method of meditation because I was at a conference and there were a lot of other scientists there. Roland McCready was there, Dean Radin was there, and we were talking about the benefits of all of these kinds of meditation and kinds of practices. We know heart math is good. We know tapping works from over 100 clinical trials. We know that mindfulness and meditation are effective. And so I thought, what if we combine neurofeedback, biofeedback with heart math, with tapping, with mindfulness, get the best of all worlds. And so this is a very simple, mechanical way of reducing your stress and bringing in the benefits of all those practices into one very brief practice, which doesn't require you to still your mind, which most of us can't do anyway. So I'd encourage you to try it. The second time round here was about 4 minutes. The first time round was about 10 minutes. And it just takes 10 minutes to totally shift your state. When you relax your tongue on the floor of your mouth, there's a nerve that runs inside your tongue called the hypoglossal nerve. And that runs to the vagus nerve. When you relax your tongue, you send a signal to your vagus nerve, which runs throughout your body, to relax. When you picture a big empty space behind your eyes, I learned that from Les Fahmy, a famous biofeedback researcher at Princeton in the 1960s. And in Princeton back then, they were building these massive, big, computer-based, mainframe-based machines to train people in biofeedback. And so the thing was the size of a Volkswagen bus, cost about $6 million, took a team of 7 people to operate. But I read one of Les Fahmy's essays, and he said, we could train people with this magnificent machine to really deeply get into an alpha state. Or we could tell them, give them the instructions to picture a big empty space behind your eyes, and boom, they're in alpha right away. I'm thinking, $6 million machine, the size of a Volkswagen bus, seven assistants, or picture a big empty space behind your eyes. It's that simple. So you do that when you go into the 6-second breathing, you go into heart coherence. When you send that beam of energy out, you go into deep heart coherence. If I put you in an MRI or an MEG, I see all these shifts happening. So without any training, without any kind of spiritual or religious belief, without stilling your mind, immediately you're in deep heart coherence, you're totally relaxed, that signal goes throughout your body, and you're in this very powerfully shifted state. So I recommend you try that, you use it. I have a peer-reviewed journal paper coming out in a little while, and it's in the Journal of Evidence-Based Integrative Medicine of people doing this for a week. They did this in the morning, and they tapped during the day. And we saw huge shifts in their biology over the course of a week, massive shifts in biology over the course of just 1 week of doing this. One of the markers we tested was cortisol, because your cortisol level is really stable. If I test your cortisol level at 6 a.m., and then at 9, then at noon, then at 8 p.m., it's going to be about the same level every day. Cortisol doesn't budge very much over the course of a day. It's called your diurnal rhythm, and it's very, very stable. So we tested people on Monday, and we tested them on Friday. And theoretically, their cortisol should have been about the same at 10 a.m. both days. From Monday to Friday, their cortisol, their baseline stress level cortisol marker, went down by 37% in just 1 week of tapping and of doing eco-meditation every morning. 37% drop in cortisol. That's a powerful result. When we have those stress hormones go down and stress biochemicals go down, if you want the slides, by the way, we'll post them all on the TLC website, so we'll have all the slides posted there in a week or so. Anyway, when the bad stuff goes down, when the stress stuff goes down, then all the cell repair stuff is boosted. So we also measured the level of a substance called salivary immunoglobulin A, or SIG-A, or just immunoglobulins for short. And we found that over the course of that same week, as their cortisol went down by 37%, their level of salivary immunoglobulin A rose by 113%, more than doubling in immunoglobulins, in immune function. Immunoglobulins are in your eyes, they're in your tongue, they're in your mouth, they're all through your digestive tract, and they're what keeps you safe from pathogens and toxins. So when you walk through the airport, and there are all these flu bugs there from all over the world, if you have high immunoglobulins, you're far less likely to catch the flu. Environmental pollutants, smoke, dust mites, all those things, your immunoglobulins are what clobber those. And if you have double the level of immunoglobulins, you're far more immune than you otherwise would be. So again, cortisol went way down, immunoglobulins went way up in just 1 week of tapping and meditation. So these are behavioral practices. They don't require a drug, they don't require medical prescriptions. They're just natural things you do that have profound effects on your body. So the title of my latest book, Mind to Matter, which Hay House published, and I had a wonderful experience working with Hay House, and they were the ones who came up with that title. They looked at the whole idea of mind to matter, thoughts to things. And I'd heard that idea that your thoughts create your reality for a long time. The Buddha said, with our thoughts we create the world. In the Psalms, in the Bible, it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Benjamin Franklin said this, Ralph Waldo Emerson said this, the Dalai Lama said this, the Buddha said this, Gandhi said this. Many people have said that our thoughts are creating the reality outside of ourselves. So I'd heard this as a metaphysical principle. But one day it occurred to me, could it be science? Could there be any science behind that? And so I began doing a series of radio shows, talking to scientists and asking them what they could tell me about thoughts to things. Now, I knew that thoughts can create things in certain obvious ways, and that thoughts cannot create things in other really obvious ways. Like this morning, I did something that was manifestation. I wanted a cup of coffee. So I walked over to the coffee maker in my room, put a coffee pot in, some water, hit the button, put a coffee cup under there, and I manifested coffee. Now, you're probably not all awed and saying, wow, what a manifester Dawson is. When I manifest a cup of coffee like that, because we can all do that. I manifested a bottle of water by walking over there and grabbing one from the table behind me. So anyone can manifest water or simple things like that. But if I told you that there's a cruise ship in the lagoon right now, and I manifested a cruise ship in the lagoon outside the hotel, then you really would be awed and be saying, wow, Dawson's an amazing manifester. We can't manifest certain things. I can't become 21 years old. I can't jump 100 feet up in the air. I can't pilot the Starship Enterprise, much though as a little boy I wished I could. So there are all these things we cannot do. There's this whole realm of things that are impossible, being 25 years old again, and there's this realm of things we can do, the bottle of water. And so there are things we definitely can manifest, and there are things that this drum can represent we definitely cannot manifest, like the cruise ship in the lagoon. But what's the middle ground? What can we manifest? And what I found as I wrote the book Mind to Matter, that most people in this middle ground are living in a tiny fraction of their potential. They have beliefs about what they can do, what they can manifest, that are completely limiting and that are completely wrong, and are mostly lies passed down to them by their tribe, by their parents, by people around them when they were children, and they keep on living these tiny little subsets of possibility their whole lives long, and they never walk into the full middle ground of what they truly can do. And when you liberate their potential, when you tap, when you meditate, when you do any of the other practices, like the Qigong we've been doing, the meditation we've been doing in the mornings, the movement we've been doing, when you start to liberate all the stress that's bound up in your body, your mind, your set of assumptions, your beliefs, and live who you can be, you can do things far greater than you might otherwise believe, much greater than you might believe. So we live in these tiny subsets of possibility. And there have been hints to me all through my life that more is possible. One big one came a few years ago when I was under a tight deadline for finishing a book, and I flew to Kauai to stick myself in a condo for a week and to just write. And every day I would go to the beach and I would hop in a Jeep, drive to a nice beach, I'd snorkel for a while, go back to the condo and write. And so one day I finished my snorkeling, been snorkeling for a while in that afternoon, and I took off my gear, washed it in fresh water, walked back to the Jeep I'd rented, to put my snorkeling gear back in the back of the Jeep and drive to the condo, put my hand in my pocket of my bathing suit to get my keys for the Jeep and put them deep in the pocket and check the other pockets, and no keys. No keys. So I thought, oh, well, no big deal, don't panic. I'm sure I just probably dropped them on the way to the changing room, so I walked back to the changing room, no keys. I walked down to the beach, no keys, and I looked out at this huge bay where I'd spent an hour snorkeling around, like this enormous bay, and I realized the keys had to be somewhere among the coral heads 6 to 12 feet deep in the bay. So I just stayed in my heart, I stayed centered, I felt a connection with the keys, and I began to swim around the bay. Now, logically, there's no chance that 6 to 12 feet down, I'm going to find 2 keys. Actually, there were 2 keys because I had very intelligently clipped the key to the condo to the car keys. So 2 little keys on a key ring, 6 to 12 feet down. And I swam around for about an hour looking for them, but it was a massive place about the size of the footprint of this whole building, and I couldn't find them, and now it was getting dark. So I thought, Dawson, you're a wonderful optimist. I love that about you. Even if it doesn't turn out, you keep on being optimistic. Glad you did that, and it's time to call off this fool's errand and go back to the car, call emergency help, and get the car company involved and so on. So I began to swim back to the beach, still totally calm. But a dad and his 3 sons had just entered the water and were paddling around, and I noticed the boys diving down to the bottom and back up again. And so my intuition gave me a little nudge, and I swam over to these 4 men, the dad and 3 sons, and I said to them, I see you guys have been diving to the bottom and coming up again. Did any of you by any chance find anything on the bottom? And the youngest boy held up my keys. So I've had so many synchronicities like that in my life that they've nudged me and told my left logical scientific brain that is highly based in cortisol and immunoglobulins. My energy friends keep telling me, like Sue, it's the energy that's creating all of these things. And there are so many little clues to me. So I began to explore that middle ground. And when I began to do that for the book Mind to Matter, I thought there's a causal link between thought and thing. There's a link in this chain. There's a whole bunch of links in this chain between thought and thing. And science is going to be able to show me a few of those links, but there'll be lots of gaps. And as I worked on the book and read over 400 scientific studies to write this book, I found there are no gaps. You can demonstrate every single link in the chain from thought to thing. In your body, it's easy. If I have a negative thought, immediately I produce biochemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. I produce stress chemicals right away the moment I have a negative thought. I hook people up into my workshops very often to EEGs or to other forms of testing, heart rate variability monitors. I get them nice and relaxed, and then I say, think about something that stresses you. And the moment they have that thought and the accompanying emotion, all the lights on my control panel turn red. They go from red to green, green to red. Right away when you think a negative thought, and the reverse thing happens when you think positively. Our bodies are responding instant by instant to absolutely every thought we have, and it's cumulative. If you have many of those thoughts, it really affects your body. Now, I've become so enthusiastic, I've completely forgotten about my PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to advance a whole bunch of parts through it. And I want to talk for a moment about emergence. This is a fascinating new branch of science, which is the spontaneously arising order in complex systems. Look at this first video over here. And this is a flock of little birds called starlings. And just go ahead and watch how they move. Now, in that flock, there are about 4 million starlings. There is no orchestra conductor. There is no starling in chief saying, "All right, you folks, time to wheel left now. Time to rise, time to fall. Oh, to the right, not so far." No one's giving them orders like that, and 4 million birds moving organically as one. Let's just stop it there and move to the next video. This is a video of 64 metronomes and what happens in 3 minutes in their entrainment with each other. So just at random, those metronomes are being set off. They're all totally out of phase. And now in 3 minutes, watch what happens. Now, as you can tell, they're completely out of phase, all just doing their own thing. And these are mechanical instruments. They should just keep on doing their own thing for a long, long time. But now look at the two on the left, bottom left-hand corner. They're in sync, they're in phase. And now a couple of the others are in phase as well. And now they're all more in phase. Now the ones in the front row are coming into phase, coming to sync with each other. Now they're mostly in phase. But there are a few holdouts. Like in that second row from the left, there's one that's wildly out of phase. I felt that way sometimes. Probably you have too. Then finally, there they are. Took less than 3 minutes for all those random phenomena to converge in sync and in harmony. That is emergence. That's spontaneously arising order in complex systems. And if the universe can do this with starlings, it can do it with you and me. We find our keys. Our lives work. We're in flow when we're in phase with something much larger than ourselves. Christine and I go on a retreat every year at New Year's for a week or two. And we focus not on our goals for the next year. We don't focus on what our aspirations are. We don't make lists of what we want over the course of the next year. Because those lists of things we want would come from here, our experience and our local minds. What we do is we get our local minds out of the way, and we tune into non-local mind. There is an intelligence organizing the universe, and it's organizing your life. It's organizing the keys in the bay for you. It's organizing tiny details in your life. I mean, it's organizing such tiny details in my life sometimes. Like, I was shopping one day. I looked through my shopping list. I'm a really organized guy. And I was in the part of the grocery store with Kleenex. And I got a little intuitive nudge, buy Kleenex. So I did a mental inventory. I know there's a box of Kleenex in the bathroom, and there's Kleenex in there, and there's a box of Kleenex in the bedroom, and there's a box of Kleenex in the spare bathroom, and that has Kleenex in it. I know we have Kleenex. I don't need to buy Kleenex. So I said, I won't buy Kleenex. I'm logical, I'm organized. I could visualize all the places in the house that have boxes of Kleenex. So I went back, didn't buy Kleenex, went to the Kleenex box in the bathroom and pulled out the Kleenex. It was the last Kleenex in the box. Went to the Kleenex box in the bedroom. The last Kleenex in that box as well. Went to the guest bathroom. The last Kleenex in that box. Now there's a lot of Kleenex. And I'm thinking, universe, I appreciate you, but are you really making sure I have enough Kleenex? But the thing about it is, it's not mechanistic that the universe is counting the Kleenexes in your boxes. It's just that when you're living in sync, you're intuitive, you're aware of the whole environment, and you're in tune with non-local mind. So for Christine and I, the key in our retreat every New Year's is to get out of our local minds, get out of thinking who we are. If I'm making a list of stuff that I want in the next year, that's out of my local mind, my limited sense of who I am. I need to let go of that, blend with non-local mind, the universe, and then have my visions from there, because the vision the universe has of who you are and who you might be and what your potential is and what the middle ground is of possibilities for you is so much vaster than your little limited local mind is capable of coming up with. It's infinite. And when we tap into infinite intelligence, we have all the wisdom, all the resources, all the brilliance of that. That's how I write. People say, how do you come up with all the science, and how do you interweave facts from many branches of science? I meditate. I come out of meditation, and suddenly there's just a whole scheme there of things, of places to go in scientific inquiry. So it's powerful. Einstein said that's the way all great science is done, is by tuning into the universe in that way. Now I want to show you, these are just examples of spontaneously rising order in the universe. There are many of them in this field of emergence. I just want to look at our bodies, because this has implications for your body. And if you let this sink in, and if you do these practices, the evidence suggests that you will have a much longer and much healthier life if you do these things. I'm going to talk about things like telomerase regeneration. I'm assuming everyone knows what telomerase here in this room is, okay? So you know what telomerase is, and basically it's the single most reliable marker of aging there is. The longer your telomeres, the longer the cell's lifespan. And the shorter your telomeres, the shorter the cell's lifespan and the sooner the cell dies. So we're going to talk about telomeres, about stem cells, and about the effect these things have on your physical body. But all of your cells are regenerating in a field, an energy field, and that's what we can shift with our consciousness. So here are just some of the facts from Mind to Matter about regeneration in the body. Your body has 37 trillion cells. Old cells are dying and new ones replacing them all the time. Every second, over 810,000 new cells are being generated in your body. And just one of those examples, red blood cells, 1,000 billion new ones per day. Here's how quickly our body regenerates tissue. Parts of the digestive tract, small intestine, 2 to 4 days, every 2 to 4 days, you have a new small intestine. Every 2 to 9 days, your stomach is completely new. Your stomach lining totally renews itself. Blood, our neutrophils in our blood, our white blood cells, our crypt cells, cervix cells every 6 days, alveoli that exchange air with the environment in our lungs every 8 days, tongue, taste buds, platelets, bones. Every year, all your bone cells in your body are replaced. It's happening at a huge pace, and it's happening in an energy field, and we'll look at the fields right now. And the big breakthrough I had in writing Mind to Matter was I looked at all the research into how fields affect your cells. And there are exactly 175 studies done between 1950 and 2015 on how energies affect cells. But one of the really cool things is that the energy field of your brain affects your cells. Your cells are listening to absolutely every thought you have. Every single brainwave you have is affecting that field in which your cells are being born. And it's affecting it for the better or for the worse. When we have fields of love, of compassion, of kindness, of creativity, it's a whole different field from the field of resentment, blame, criticism, anger. All of these fields are different, and they produce different effects on cells. Now, brainwaves are simply the speed at which neurons communicate with each other. A slow wave is 1 cycle a second, or 2 cycles per second. So everyone now, just for a moment, just clap, just clap. Okay, now that is signaling out of phase. Now clap in rhythm. Okay, that's delta. That's about 1 cycle per second. Clap fast like this. That's fast delta. That's about 2 cycles per second. So what your cells in your brain are doing is they're clapping at different speeds, and that's telling the rest of the cells in your brain and your body what to do. So the speed of neural signaling is how the brain coordinates across different systems. And that's how energy, those pulses of energy sent out by brain cells, are regulating matter. Fast clapping is a fast brain wave like delta, or like gamma or beta, and then slow clapping, like 1 cycle per second, 2 is a slow wave like delta. We'll see what these waves do. So again, there are several different flavors of brain waves, from slow at the top, delta, and theta, to high, gamma, and they all do different things. Delta is what we have in deep, dreamless sleep, 0 to 4 cycles per second. We aren't aware of the external environment. We're also having non-rapid eye movement sleep, and also mystics have lots and lots of delta, psychics have lots and lots of delta, people who are really aware of the environment have lots of delta, shamans have lots of delta, people who live, indigenous peoples have lots and lots of delta, empaths have lots and lots of delta, but it's the signature brain wave of the mystical experience. If I hook you up to an EEG and induce a mystical experience, we'll see your delta flare out dramatically. Theta is the signature brain wave of healing. It's found in daydreaming, light sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, vivid dreams, subconscious trance, healing, super learning, intuition, flow of ideas. But a scientist called Robert Becker noticed this in the 1960s, that hooking people up who are healers, they're in theta, tons of theta, and that theta is sending signals, healing signals, to your own cells. You are the healer of your body's cells. Alpha is the next fastest wave, and that's from 8 to 13 claps per second, or hertz. Relaxation. So the goal of neurofeedback, biofeedback is to get you into an alpha brainwave state. So when you're relaxed, when you've been doing something in a really focused way, and you take a break, your brain makes lots and lots of alpha. And alpha is important because when you make lots of alpha, which you do when you picture that big empty space behind your eyes. So you picture that, and you immediately make huge flares of alpha. When you have lots of alpha, you have access to theta and delta. So now your mystic wave, your wave of connection with the universe, and your wave of healing is when you have access to through the alpha frequencies of your brain. And you can generate it by all of those things: reflection, time in nature, and meditation or neurofeedback. Then beta is the signature brainwave of stress. So brainwave, that's the brainwave of high mental activity. If I'm focused on building a spreadsheet, or composing a difficult email, or doing a really focused task, then I'll have lots of beta going on. But if I'm anxious or having a panic attack, I'll have huge flares of beta, and it'll shut down delta. It'll shut down my sense of connection with the universe. If I'm having a panic attack and having lots of anxiety and lots of beta, I will shut down my cell healing dramatically. I'm going to show you some graphs in a moment, and it shows that you're shutting down your cell healing like turning off a light switch when you're in panic or stress. Dramatic changes that are triggered by beta. Then finally, gamma. Gamma was first observed in the brains of monks meditating. And it's a very fast wave, 25 to 100 plus claps per second. And it's the characteristic brain wave of insight, people who have flashes of insight. Arthur Rubinstein, playing the piano, will have these huge flashes of gamma. The composer, the mathematician, the scientist, the artist will have lots and lots of gamma. Monks, when some of the monks that have been measured with MRIs are in deep meditation, they produce 700% the amount of gamma that ordinary brains produce. Massive amounts of gamma produced by meditation, especially deep meditation. Happiness. Happy people have far more gamma. Depressed people have far less gamma. And it also synchronizes information between different parts of the brain. And again, all this is happening this is all energy in the brain that is shaping our cell activity. And here are some of the things that it does. Gamma. Okay, look at number 1 there. If my father's very close to the end of his life, he has Alzheimer's. We watched him gradually shift into deeper and deeper stages of Alzheimer's over the last 15 years. And Alzheimer's is characterized by beta amyloid plaques in the brain. These look like tar. You can imagine white neural bundles flowing through your brain and then just being coated with tar. That's what beta amyloid plaques look like. Gamma rapidly dissipates those beta amyloid plaques in the brain. How rapidly? I'll tell you in a moment. Improves Alzheimer's symptoms, increases production of stem cells. You need stem cells. Stem cells are blank cells that can differentiate into muscle or bone or nerve cells or skin cells, and the more stem cells you have, the more you heal. People who are sick, people who are depressed, people whose immune system is compromised, they make way too few stem cells. You need lots of stem cells in your body to repair your body, and gamma increases the production of stem cells. And many other things, anti-inflammatory proteins and regeneration. Now, MIT did a study of mice, and they noticed that mice who got Alzheimer's disease, and they breed strains of mice that are predisposed to Alzheimer's disease, they noticed that they had very little gamma going on in their brains. So they took a bunch of these mice that were sick. They were near the end of their lives. They had tons of Alzheimer's plaques in their brains. And they then exposed the brains of those mice to gamma. They did it by flashing lights at 40 cycles per second. So this is an image of a cross-section through brain tissue. And those brown things are those beta amyloid plaques. And you can see that where there are white neural bundles, that the information can move through those neurons, through the brain. But wherever there's a brown plaque there, it blocks the signaling. And the neurons can't fire and send information through the brain. So eventually you get more and more degeneration in the brain and more of those beta amyloid plaques, and then you die. They found, now again, I talk fast usually. I'll talk slowly this time because this is worth knowing. They found in the study at MIT that in 1 hour of gamma, 1 hour, 50% of the beta amyloid plaques disappeared. Think about that for your life, okay? If you're a relative with Alzheimer's, if you're worried about Alzheimer's, in 1 hour, just 1 hour, one treatment with gamma, 50% of the beta amyloid plaques in those mouse brains disappeared. You want to do that. You seriously want to be doing that in your own brain every day. You want to be meditating, doing EQ meditation, and triggering gamma in your own brain. That is the effect. The research team were totally blown away. The researchers said we were very, very surprised. Actually, she said we were very, 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 very surprised. They were just blown away by this result. It's now been replicated. They're trying it out in human trials. But again, gamma is you don't need a medicine for this. You just need to sit quietly, tune into the universe, open to non-local mind, meditate, and you're making all of these gamma waves in your own brain. Alpha boosts serotonin, increases synthesis of DNA, increases the function of memory and learning circuits in the hippocampus in your brain. All of those things happen when you're in alpha, when you're in theta. Increases serotonin, reduces pain, increases gene activity during energy healing, regenerates human cartilage cells, all kinds of things happening when you're producing more theta. And delta, again, growth hormone, clears the brain of beta amyloid plaques. Now look at that fourth thing down. This is maybe one of the most exciting discoveries in anti-aging science in the last decade. That brainwave increases the formation of telomeres, and that's called the frequency window, 0.19 hertz, 0.19 cycles per second. It increases telomerase production tenfold. And this is a diagram from my book, Mind to Matter. Now you see your cells are, someone was talking to me the other day about they're worried about power lines and about cell phone frequencies and stuff. These are screaming loud signals your cells can't usually hear. What they can hear is the tiny little signals your brain is giving them. And this is one of them. So look at all of those frequencies from 0 on the left-hand side to half a hertz on the right-hand side. At the bottom, 0 telomerase production. At the top, 100% telomerase production. So there's nothing going on in all those low frequencies, 0.1 hertz, 0.11, 0.15, 0.17. You hit 1.19 and boom, tenfold regeneration of telomerase. And then down at 0.2, there's nothing. And there's nothing again across the rest of the spectrum. That's how exquisitely sensitive your cells are to the signals your brain generates during meditation. So when you meditate and do these kinds of meditation, you're stimulating stem cells, you're stimulating cell repair, and you stimulate telomerase dramatically with this kind of activity. And again, this is no miracle drug. I mean, if I was a head of a pharmaceutical company and I was giving you a drug that could regenerate telomerase tenfold, it would be a miracle drug. But here, all it is it's free. Just sit there, breathe, picture a big empty space behind your eyes, breathe through your heart, and suddenly all this is happening in your body. So we see these big increases in people who tap, doing EFT, and people who are doing meditation. We see big increases in alpha, theta, delta, and gamma, and their beta goes away. And I'll show you a picture of what this looks like at a workshop. So here's a workshop at Omega Institute in New York. On the right is my colleague Judith Pennington. Sitting down there with her headband on is a retired doctor, physician, and we're reading her brainwaves in real time there. Now, she's got a beautiful brainwave pattern. This woman actually basically has an enlightened pattern, just walking around with her eyes open. And those are the frequencies from the very top, that in red, that's her gamma. At the bottom, in purple, that is her delta, and then above that is theta. The green in the middle is her alpha. And when you have big alpha like that, you get lots of theta and delta usually. And that's her pattern at that moment. We then watch her tap, we watch her meditate, and we measure her changes. That's after treatment. This is at a big stage in France, where I teach every year. And this is a woman who had anxiety. That's the woman at the bottom of the screen there. And this is shot from the back of the room. Initially, when she's been thinking about a bad event, and the bad event was severe childhood abuse, at the top of the range over here, the red, that's all beta. So she has tons of beta in both the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, and she has very little delta and theta, not much alpha going on below those. Now, after treatment, her brainwave ratios change dramatically. Her brain is functioning in a whole different way. On the right-hand side, look how the alpha's gone from being small in the middle over there to being big. The beta's gone at the top from being big to being small. She has more theta, and she has a lot more delta at the bottom. She's having a mystical experience. She's having a healing experience. All this is going on in her brain, triggered purely, this is a tapping session she's getting over here. So we see massive changes in brain waves when people do this. So that's your body. Let's now talk about non-local mind to end up with. Non-local mind and the universe. How does this relate to local and non-local mind. You are changing molecules in the world around you all the time. You are literally changing molecules out there. There are four fundamental forces of physics. They are the strong nuclear force. The strong nuclear force keeps atoms together. The weak nuclear force is what we measure with nuclear radiation. It's giving off of charged particles of uranium, plutonium, all those radioactive substances until they turn into lead, usually in hundreds of thousands, millions of years. So this is the weak nuclear force. There's electromagnetism and there's gravity. Those are the four forces of physics. These are fundamental forces in physics. These are the foundation of modern physics. And it turns out human beings can affect the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity by intention and consciousness alone. One lovely little demonstration we had done here at the conference is I had asked Chun-Yi to bless and charge some of these bottles of water. We got a bunch of these bottles of water from the same batch, made sure they were all from the same batch. I then had Chun-Yi charge some of the water. We're taking it back to Noetic Sciences, putting it in a spectrometer, and we'll measure what will happen. And I predict that that water will change. And what will change is the angle of the bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen atom. This is a model of a water molecule, H2O. So we have a big oxygen molecule over here. We have two little hydrogen molecules over here, bonded to the oxygen. And this angle over here is known. It's been measured in chemistry for over a century. It's always 104.5 degrees. So you take water from snow, you take water from ice, you take water from steam, take water that's in liquid form. Wherever you find that water, this bonding angle between the oxygen and the hydrogen is always 104.5. Always, 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 except if you have a healing touch practitioner go and hold his or her hands over the water and project healing intention into the water, that bonding angle changes. It's been done now. That experiment has been done several times. So we're going to take that water back to the lab. We'll be measuring that over the course of the next few weeks and seeing what the results are, comparing blessed water to unblessed water and seeing what the changes are. We can literally change the water molecules. I got really serious about praying over my food when I wrote Mind to Matter. Every meal, I just sit there and I hold my hands over my food and I project healing and loving intentions into my food because I know now my body is 70% water and I'm changing, literally changing the bonding angle in my food. When I met Christine 10 years ago, I used to joke that Christine's salads tasted full of love. And Christine just makes food, and when she makes food, it tastes different. It tastes amazing. You can tell a Christine salad because it's full of Christine energy and Christine love. So we shift our food, we shift things. I have a friend who, when she comes over, brings a bottle of wine, blesses the wine. There are ceremonies, I have photographs on my website, of ancient ceremonies done by Native Americans, indigenous tribes people in the Amazon, blessing water. There's a Catholic ritual, there's a Greek Orthodox ritual of blessing water. So it turns out people have been blessing water, had the idea of blessing water for a long time. So that's how we affect these molecular-sized particles. And there are lots of other studies described in Mind to Matter of how we affect the other parts of the four fundamental forces of matter. Just one really fun one, there was a guy in the 16th century called Joseph of Cupertino. And he was a Catholic priest. And Joseph, when he would turn to the altar to say Mass, his body would lift off the floor several feet. And so eventually, he was told by his superiors to stop that nonsense and quit lifting off the ground. But he just became so happy, so enraptured. Whenever he'd say the Mass, his whole body would lift off the ground. So eventually, this came to the attention of the Spanish Inquisition. Now, it wasn't a good idea to come to the attention of the Inquisition in 1600. You really hoped, if you were a Catholic priest in the 1600s, to avoid the attention of the Inquisition. And they shipped him off to Rome, and before all of these inquisitors, these guys determined to burn him. They said, okay, Joseph, go say Mass. And sure enough, he began to say Mass, and he lifted off the ground before all these witnesses. Eventually, after his death, he was canonized, and there are 13 volumes in the Vatican Library of testimony from hundreds of people, diplomats, popes, cardinals, all testifying to seeing him lift off the ground. I posted a fun video on YouTube, video a few weeks ago, and it was these two German tourists in Tibet. And they went to a monastery, and they'd heard there was a monk there who could levitate. And it's a really corny video. It's just like the girlfriend holding up the video while her iPhone, while the young German man goes to the monk and says, I heard you can levitate. Will you do it for us? And the monk's like, are you kidding me? It's like, I'm not a tourist spectacle. It doesn't want to do it. But eventually the monk says, I know you've come a long way, and okay, so I'll do it for you. And it's just this really funky home video, and the girlfriend's holding the video camera there, and the monk sits there and starts chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, and the monk just lifts off the ground. It's extraordinary. And clearly there are no ropes, there are no pulleys, there's no preparation over here. This guy is just floating. I would love to study phenomena like that, defying gravity. We can do extraordinary things with our consciousness. He shifted consciousness, and his whole physical body shifted in its configuration. So here's how we attune to the universe. Here's how we sync up with non-local mind. The Earth is a giant bar magnet. On the left-hand side, you see a north and a south pole of a bar magnet, and it's making these lines of force around it. On the right, that's the planet. It has a north pole. You can measure it with a compass. And it also has these big lines of force around it, just the way the magnetic field organizes iron filings. The Earth has these fields around it. And like those white lines there, they are more concentrated in certain areas. And what happens is, as the solar wind rushes by the Earth, it is like plucking strings on a violin or a guitar. The solar wind is rushing by the Earth at about 2 million miles an hour. There's a photograph from NASA over here. And so it's rushing by the Earth, and it's plucking those strings. These are called field line resonances. And scientists have been measuring them for the last half century. And so it's setting up vibrations in the Earth's atmosphere. So we have these field line resonances, which we can measure. There are giant magnetometers in different parts of the world, different labs, measuring these field line resonances. And they fluctuate. They go up and down as the solar wind becomes more or less intense. So there's this music being played by the solar wind, by solar flares, on the field line resonances of our planet all the time. We're bathed in this beautiful electromagnetic radiation and stimulation of this music, of the spheres. This is at the end of Mind to Matter. And this is absolutely remarkable. I take permission to actually put this in the book before it was published in a peer-reviewed journal, because it was such new research. This is a diagram of the Earth's field line resonance fluctuations over the course of 1 month. Okay, so 1 month, for 30 days, where scientists are measuring with this giant magnetometer the fluctuations of those field line resonances in the Earth. They also have some meditators, and they're wearing coherence monitors to measure their heart coherence for that same 30 days. And what happens is the heart coherence of that meditator is in sync with the field line resonances of the Earth triggered by solar activity. When I say we're in sync, I'm not talking about a metaphysical concept. I'm talking about measurable science. And this is remarkable. And then when I read this, I said, the implication of this is extraordinary. This suddenly it starts to give us an explanatory framework for telepathy, clairvoyance, distant healing, distant effects, because if I am in sync with these huge cycles, and I am here in Cancun, Mexico, and then my wife, Christine, is in sync with these huge cycles in Petaluma, California, and my friend Mark is in sync with them, and he's in LA, and my friend in Chennai, India is in sync with them, and my friend in Norwich, England is in sync with them. If we're all in sync with these big cycles, we are all in sync with everyone else who is in sync with these big cycles. Think about that. This is extraordinary. This is science so new it hasn't been even measured yet. But it just follows on. It's just a logical conclusion. So no wonder you feel someone else's pain at a distance. No wonder we can project energy and have an effect at a distance. Because if we're all in sync, we're part of these huge cycles. That's why Christine and I, when we do our New Year's retreat, and we want to set our vision for the next year, we don't want our local mind. We want to let go of our local mind, breathe away our non-local worries, attune to non-local mind, be out there with that benevolent universe that has so much love for us, so much passion for our well-being, that we can't even take it in. It's hard to even take it in. When I meditate in the morning, sometimes I finish my meditation after an hour or so, and I open my eyes, I just cry. There's so much love there in the universe for us. You can't even imagine how much love the universe has for you. It cares about the Kleenex in your box. It cares about the health of your cells. It cares about the well-being of everything in your life. I wake up, I open my eyes after meditation, and I stand up sometimes. I take a breath, and I start crying. I can't even imagine how to be grateful enough in my heart for taking a breath. I take a step. I look at my feet. I cry. I can't imagine the love it took to give me feet and legs and limbs and cells. I get to be here and experience all of these things, and experience them with Christine and with my kids, with my family, with my community, with you, with millions of people. And science is there with us. Mind to matter used to be this exotic metaphysical proposition, but it isn't. It's the way the universe works. There's spontaneous, synchronized order happening everywhere, and we can align ourselves with it with meditation, with mindfulness, with tapping, with time in nature, with many things. I have 30 practices in Mind to Matter that I recommend. Now, here's what happens over time when you do this. This is a case history in Chapter 1 of Mind to Matter. There was a man called Graham Phillips, who was a hard-nosed, investigative TV journalist. He'd heard about meditation, and he decided to go on an 8-week meditation journey to learn about it. He'd never meditated before. He said, I've heard meditation does good things. I don't know if it's just woo-woo or not. I'm going to do it for 8 weeks. But on day 1, he went into a lab at a university called Monash University, and the researchers, under a psychologist called Richard Chambers, did a comprehensive workup on his brain. After 2 weeks, Graham Phillips found his behavior had changed. He no longer had flares of road rage. He wasn't screaming at people. He wasn't stressed at work. He noticed stress, and it just flowed away. After 8 weeks, he went back into Monash University. They did a comprehensive workup on his brain again. And this is what they found. In this part of the brain called the dentate gyrus, this is a part of the hippocampus, the emotional brain, that regulates emotion brain-wide. It's responsible for brain-wide regulation of negative emotions, so you don't scream at somebody if they do something that offends you. The volume of neural tissue in his dentate gyrus grew by 22.8% in 8 weeks. 22.8% increase in volume in neurons in his dentate gyrus in only 8 weeks. Other parts of his brain changed as well. That is how quickly your brains are remodeling themselves based on your thoughts, on your consciousness. This isn't some kind of miracle drug. This is the miracle of you, meditation, of letting go of your local mind, of attuning to non-local mind, and being in that space, shaping your brain. You might look the same after a year or two, but the wiring inside here has changed completely. And so now, when bad things happen, you are resilient. I told you the story of the fire last January at TLC, and how just our home and we woke up at 12:45 a.m. There was a glow on the ridge. I walked outside. There was a fire racing down toward us. We had to just jump in the car and drive out of there as fast as we possibly could. Yet we were able to quickly regain our sense of well-being in just a few days. by meditation. The first time we meditated after the fire, we felt as though we dropped back into our bodies, and we were fine. We realized we were totally fine. People texted back photographs of our house. I said to the person who sneaked in past the National Guard, I said, was the house damaged? She said, Dawson, there's nothing there. She sent us this picture back, and these are just some of the scenes from the fire, because when we were driving, this was a huge, big burst of flame, and then as we were driving out, Christine felt heat on her head, looked up through the moonroof, and all the tree branches were on fire above her, and it just burned whole neighborhoods. 5,000 houses were burned up there, and then that's after and before the fire. So those are the kinds of shifts you see, and we got that picture back, and that was day 2 of the fire, and yet we were resilient. We had all this neural material in our brains around being resilient. So that is how your brain changes over time when you do these practices. It's powerful to have the resilient to recover. Meditation, any one of those other practices can really help you, and they're all there, all available to you to do every day. So I urge you to take advantage of them. Meditate, tap, reduce your stress, let go of local mind, tune into non-local mind, and the vision that non-local mind has of your well-being will bring you to tears and to life. Thank you so much.